We're doing our Bechdel test segment. The Bechdel test is a measure of representation of women in film and other fiction. In Alison Bechdel's comic strip, one woman explains that she only goes to a movie if it satisfies the following requirements. The movie has to have at least 2 women in it. They need to talk to each other, and they need to talk to each other about something other than a man.
Does One Battle After Another pass the Bechdel test?
Yes, it does.
It does, yeah.
It does. I believe there's at least one scene of Jungle Pussy and Perfidia talking about their various revolutionary acts, and also Willa speaks to Regina Hall's character Deandra about, oh, didn't you tell me you didn't have your phone? And I think there might even be a 13 as well. I will say, for all my issues with gender in this movie, there are a bunch of female characters, and you have options to pick from in how they interact with each other.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't fail the Bechdel test at all.
Does Willa count?
Does she count as a woman?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's a female character.
Yeah, but she's a child, no?
I include female characters that are teenagers and children.
Okay.
Do you
it
not?
Still passes if you don't. It still passes if you
Even
don't
if
include
you
her, but
still
just
passes.
yeah, it still passes. Yeah, as we mentioned before, like a movie can pass the Bechdel test and still be regressive when it comes to gender, and I think this is a prime example. I feel like this movie subscribes to the Madonna's whore complex. Doesn't surprise me. At the end of the day, it's a movie written by a man. The women are either hypersexualized or they're mummies. Like basically, there's it's all or nothing. And this is indicative of men who struggle to see women as whole characters, women who can even be hypersexual and also be very caring and very motherly. I wasn't impressed when it came to gender.
I really look forward to the day the right filmmaker really locks in with Tiana, because Tiana's real life story and real life depth is layered and nuanced, and she is an interesting portrait of what it means to be a Black child star, what it is to be a hypersexualized Black woman, what it is to be a queer woman, what it is to be a multi-hyphenate woman, what it means to be an athletic woman, the interesting way she plays with femininity. She's a very interesting individual, and she's a very interesting performer. And the day the right filmmaker really gets to push her to her range will be a really cool day, because I really like to see it.
I think this actually highlights another reason why I wasn't in love with her character. And this is no criticism to her, but at the end of the day, we meet Tiana Taylor as somebody who's on My Sweet 16. She's getting a very elaborate car for her 16th birthday and this sort of thing. I'm not saying that you can't be a radical if you've been born into certain levels of privilege or luxury, but there was something missing from the revolutionary side of that character. I didn't see the hunger. I didn't see the anger. I got the vibe that this is just someone who likes playing with guns. At one point, she even says the fun shit is playing with the guns. There was something missing for me, and I feel like maybe if we had an actress who had grown up in some sort of struggle, financially, I'm talking about, maybe we would have seen more of that. I agree with you. I don't think this was necessarily the role for her. And I think maybe the reason why she was cast is because, as you mentioned earlier, ultimately Paul Thomas Anderson wanted to see her being sexual on screen and for him to direct her, allegedly.
Another really interesting thing is with what you just said, is that if you look at the history of what happens with the real Black Panthers and the young bloods, a lot of them were extremely young. Like, they were babies. Perhaps I think he died when he was 20 or 21. Stokely Carmichael, later known as Kwame Ture, he was like 21, 22 when he had to feed the state. So many of them that died, Bobby Rush, a lot of them were 15, 14, 16, 17. Huey P. Newton started off when he was in his very early 20s. They were babies. And so there was some degree of youthful, you can't stop me energy about them. Yeah. Like, while they were revolutionaries, they were not jaded by the world yet. They were very, very, they had that wildness of youth. And I have nothing to lose about them. And I don't think it's a coincidence that they were like that because they were very young. And many of them that have lived on to be old,
Mm.
either, they went off into exile. Some of them, like, I can't remember his name. One of them became actually like a conservative. Some of them became professors. They they keep that revolutionary spirit about them. I'm not saying it goes away, but it's never the same as when they were very, very young.
Yeah.
And I think there's something about that when you're born into that energy and born into that strife, when you're very young and you're ready to live out that rush with other like-minded
Mm.
young people that cannot easily be replicated with people that don't grow up with that same kind of energy or are not even that age. And I'm not saying Tiana Taylor is too old for this role. I'm so
Mm.
happy that a lot of the movies we've reviewed, the lead women characters are in their early 30s. I like that. I really love that.
Mm.
But I think that's also another factor to add in that this kind of character she's playing, they were actually supposed to be very young women. They were
Mm.
babies. Their frontal lobes hadn't developed yet.
And on this point, a final point from me on this is you're not gonna like it, but I do think that there's a nicer way for us to read Bob's character, right? Yes, he's an incompetent man. He's demonstrating weaponized incompetence. He's not even taking care of his child properly. By the sounds of it, she's had to raise it herself. Having said that, I do think there's something to be said about the way how Perfidia's actions force him to be jaded by the world, as you just described it, right? So she gets to still be a revolutionary because she is leaving behind her responsibility to take care of her child. Now, listen, one of my most controversial opinions is that we need to see more women doing that. Ultimately, we need to see more
Clack
women,
it.
and I know that sounds horrible, but I genuinely believe that. So, but at the end of the day, when people do that, someone has to pick up the responsibility, and in this case, that's Bob. Now, if you're busy taking care of a child as a single parent, it's very difficult to then be a revolutionary on top of it. So, although I agree with the critiques around his character, I think there's a nicer way to read it as well.
T, that scene, and I'll wrap on this note. That scene where Ghetto Pat is lamenting to Sensei that, do you know I can't do her hair? All I could
Yeah.
say was, all art is autobiographical. That's all I could say. That
Yes.
moment, the way the camera was holding on his face as he was
Yeah.
so woefully saying that, I was like, oh,
Embarrassing.
all directors are making autobiographies, and I'll leave it at that.